Welcome back to another episode of Hospo Happy Hour, proudly brought to you by Hospo For Life and Warner's Distillery. We've got a great show lined up for you all today at home. Today's episode, we'll be discussing sleep. Why is quality and quantity of sleep so important in managing your mental health? With Sharon Richards for the first round today, followed by chef and restaurateur Joshua Mason from Quoi and La Boucherie here in Sydney for last drinks. Let's get today's show started. Up for the first round today, we have Sharon Richards, the Operations and Wellbeing Specialist at Altius Group here in Sydney. So, welcome Sharon. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks Liam. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Good stuff. So tell us, why is sleep so important in managing our mental health?
Oh, look, Liam, sleep is just such a critical part of the overall mental health conversation.
Yeah.
And it's something that I really have taken a really strong interest in understanding the link between sleep and good mental health over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think, there's two big parts to sleep. There's how long we sleep for, or the quantity of sleep that we get, as well as the quality of sleep that you get. That's kind of how well you actually sleep and that deep sleep that you go into.
Yeah.
And, there really is a very strong link between sleep and mood control, which is obviously incredibly important for the hospitality industry at the moment with dealing with the stresses of COVID-19.
Yeah, you can either sleep too long or not enough. And that once you find the happy medium, I tell you what, so it's great.
Yeah, and look, I think for a lot of people in hospitality, because of the nature of your work, and shift work and all of those early mornings, I would think that there are a lot of people out there at the moment who perhaps haven't had great sleep habits for a long time.
Yeah.
And people can become very used to feeling a bit crappy because they're not sleeping well, and feeling tired and exhausted can become the new norm.
Yeah.
And I guess, for some people, if they're not working at the moment, that this could be an opportunity to really learn and understand a bit about what makes good sleep, and an opportunity to really create some good sleep habits, not only to help cope with mental health and well-being now, but into the future and when returning to work as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, look, I'd really like to explore, I guess, those, some of those sort of concepts in a bit more detail, in terms of helping people really after this session have a few little practical tools that they could really take out of this session today.
Yeah.
So one of the big things is really in terms of the quantity of sleep is, as adults, what the research shows us very strongly is that we need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. So how many hours did you have last night, Liam?
I think about 4.5, 5 hours.
Yeah. How are you feeling today?
I feel flat. And I don't feel like I have the normal energy that I have, every other day, where I get a good sleep.
Yeah. We definitely know from the research that less than 6 hours a night does not give you enough restorative sleep. And basically your brain and your mind, you need that in terms of really, processing what's happened in your day.
Yeah.
And really preparing for the next day. And, I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of sort of waking up or having to be forced out of bed when we feel like we haven't had enough sleep.
Yeah.
And it's literally like your body's saying, no, you need more sleep.
And I think that's where stress levels really come into play. And I know from working in restaurants, really long hours, in some places where, starting a breakfast shift at, 6:30, 7 a.m. and then having a couple of breaks during the day and then finishing at 11 p.m. And it's, by the time you get to that point, you finish work, you come home, You might have something to eat or a drink. You want to unwind because you haven't seen the four walls of your house all day, or your families. And then next minute, you know, you're getting another few hours sleep, and that vicious cycle day to day, then your brain doesn't wake up in the morning, and then you're really struggling to process those thoughts all day. And that which just brings on more stress, maybe, you know, a more heated environment in the kitchen as well, and people just not coping.
And you've raised a really good point there, because the thing that we know about, you know, why it's important to get 7 hours sleep a night as an adult is that we need that amount of sleep to manage good mood.
Yeah.
And we also need it in terms of just our cognitive functions. So our ability to make decisions, our ability to multitask, our ability to focus and concentrate. And our ability to cope with stress are all influenced by the amount of sleep that we are getting or not getting.
Yeah.
So when you think about the, you know, the work that you do in hospitality, all of those things are really critical. You need to multitask, you need to be able to make decisions, you're working under pressure, you know, you're dealing with lots of different demands. So you know, it really can make a very big difference to really your work performance. I think, you know, the amount of sleep that you're actually getting. We're more likely to make errors when we haven't got enough sleep, because our ability to concentrate, and we're usually not as efficient in our work, and not as productive, because we're really not at our best in our decision making ability when we are fatigued.
Yeah. A checklist, which, you know, bit different to hospitality, and that, but same pressure environment. And from going from cooking to flying, you know, we have a checklist before we go on every flight, and that's called the I'm safe checklist. And sleep is a massive one. And if you haven't had enough sleep before, you know, jumping, say, into a cockpit, it can apply to the kitchen as well. And that things just don't work. And, you know, as you said, your decision-making skills just aren't there. You're very slow, you're very sluggish, and you're not as quick as what you are, you know, from being, you know, well rested and ready to go.
And I think the other thing that's really important in these sorts of times around sleep is important to mention, is that a lot of people may not be sleeping well because of the stresses that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, for a lot of people, if you've come out of hospitality and you're going through a period perhaps where you're not working at the moment, and you're stressed, and, you know, like we mentioned in one of the other shows last week, your body is used to doing a lot of movement and being really busy. And when you suddenly take that away, and then you have the added stress of, you know, perhaps worrying about, you know, work and what's happening, or health reasons, those sorts of things, then our brain, they're not ideal situations really for us to get good quality sleep.
Yeah. I totally agree with that one.
So I think it would be great to spend a bit of time just giving people some tips and strategies around how to actually improve their sleep.
Yeah.
And just to really understand how these things impact on both the quality and the quantity of sleep that we get, or what we're aiming for. And really, sleep at, you know, what happens at night is really an end result of a lot of the habits that we have during the day.
Yeah. And
I think for a lot of people, because sleep is something that, you know, we kind of do every day, we sometimes don't have a lot of awareness around the connection between actually what we're doing in the daytime and in the lead up to tonight is actually impacting on sleep. It's like we take sleep for granted, and we don't really have a lot of awareness around the different things that can impact on it.
Yeah.
So, you know, during the daytime, being conscious of the amount of caffeine that you are consuming can, and particularly if you are someone who is struggling to get to sleep or struggling to stay asleep, the amount of caffeine that you have during the day can be a really significant factor that can impact on the sleep that you get at night. And what I find in talking to people, it's not only typically the coffee, but it's also the energy drinks and enormous amounts of caffeine in energy drinks.
Yeah.
The tricky thing about sort of the relationship between caffeine and sleeping is that often we are using or choosing caffeine, extra caffeine in our day to actually pep us up because we are feeling tired.
Yeah.
And it's that caffeine during the day that actually contributes to not sleeping well at night.
Energy drinks are the big one. Like I've said to a lot of kitchen teams over the years, like, they'll come to work with like an 8-pack of Red Bulls, and chuck them in the fridge. And I know from myself, I used to drink a lot of energy drinks, and it actually started to have an effect on my heart, and that from too much. But same as coffee in a restaurant, we start work, we have a coffee, and that someone will come in for a meeting, we have another coffee, and that. But before you know it, you've had maybe 6 or 8 coffees throughout the day. You're working dinner service, and then you're having a coffee before service because you're feeling tired, and then midway through service, to pep yourself back up again, you're having another one, but then you're not going to sleep when you get home.
Yeah. And then you wake up in the morning feeling really tired because you haven't slept well. And, look, I'm not here to say don't drink coffee or don't, coffee is a pleasure that's enjoyed, by people very much. But I guess it's about having awareness around how much you're actually consuming. And if you are having trouble sleeping, and a lot of people don't actually get good quality sleep, but they're not even aware that that's a thing because they've just sort of been sleeping this way for so many years. So I'd really encourage people to, particularly in a time like this where you can try just cutting back. Ideally, most of the research would suggest that having any more than, really 3 coffees a day is not ideal. And ideally, even, perhaps only 1 or 2. Some wellbeing, we'll talk about just having 1 a day. So, look, at the end of the day, it's your decision, and there doesn't have to be a hard and fast rule, but it's trying to cutting back a couple and starting to cut out 1 or 2 a day, and then seeing what impact that can have on your sleep at night. And then secondly, alcohol is another big one. And again, I'm not, here to cast judgment to say don't drink at all. And I enjoy my wine like everyone. So, but there definitely is a relationship between consumption of alcohol and poorer quality sleep. And I think we all know that feeling, if we've had a few too many drinks and you just don't sleep as well because your body is processing all of the alcohol, your liver is processing, you tend to get dehydrated. And often, again, what happens is that there's sort of this paradox where when we're feeling tired and when we're perhaps not coping with stress very well, that's when we tend to drink more coffee and drink more alcohol. And then it becomes a vicious cycle that the combination of those things leads to poor quality sleep. Then you wake up in the morning, you're not feeling at your best, and then you're more likely to go for the caffeine and the sugar, and then again, not cope with stress as well. And so it tends to be this sort of downward spiral, really, between the relationship of caffeine and alcohol and sleep. Whereas just trying to cut back, whether it's, for example, if you had 3 wines a night, cut back to 1, 1.5. And see what impact that has on your sleep. And ideally, having around about, 4 to 5 days a week of actually no alcohol can actually really make a big, and I do a lot of work with people that the concept of the relationship between alcohol that could be impacting on their sleep is something that they haven't thought about before. And so it's like, well, but I enjoy my red wines and I have them every night and it's fine. I sleep really well. And when you go through this sort of coaching with people around their well-being and say, look, I want you to try this, I've never had a client that's come back to say that it doesn't make a difference to their quality of sleep when they've cut back on their alcohol, or they have a couple of alcohol-free days in their week. So it's certainly something that, and I think often our alcohol consumption habits, they creep up on us and they change. And, you know, I think a lot of people are experiencing at the moment that, you know, they're wanting to have a bit more wine. They're feeling, like they deserve it. And you know, people are eating at home and cooking at home and those sorts of things. So having a glass of wine is a really nice thing to do. But it's also about then thinking, well, how actually is this impacting on my sleep?
Yeah. Gotcha.
And then the third thing with that around habits is the amount of sitting that we do. So we know that by having a very sedentary period during the day, and basically that just means spending too much time sitting on your backside. That if you're not active during the days, that is another thing that can really contribute to less than ideal sleep at night.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that one. And another point here about not letting yourself fall asleep in front of the TV. I do that a lot.
Yeah, that's a big one, Liam. I think the research shows that, you know, when you fall asleep in front of the telly is that, and then, you know, you actually, that first sleep that you go into can be quite sort of deep sleep and good quality sleep.
Yeah.
But then if you wake up and then you go back to bed, that you don't really go back into that deeper sleep for a while.
Yeah.
And again, that's another thing that becomes a bit of a vicious cycle, is that if you have a tendency to fall asleep in front of the TV and then you're not getting that good quality sleep at night, then you're more tired the next day, and then you're more likely to fall asleep in front of the TV. And so a little bit like the alcohol and the caffeine, it can become a bit of a vicious cycle. And people say, well, I always fall in front of this. That's what I do. I've done that for years, Sharon. And like, well, the reason that you're doing that is probably because you're quite exhausted.
Yeah.
If you actually kick yourself, or get someone, or set an alarm on your phone to kick yourself off to bed a little bit earlier, and actually get that good sleep, then you probably won't feel like falling asleep in front of the telly as much.
And when you're starting to feel yourself, you know, drifting away, that's like the kind of cue to like get up and go straight to bed at that point. And I can't stand anything worse than, you know, falling asleep at like 9 o'clock on the couch, and then I'll wake up at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And then I'm back up at, say, you know, 6:30 in the morning. And yeah, just that whole brokenness, and that you just don't get that quality. You feel more tired the next day.
You feel terrible, and then it's that sort of vicious cycle. So yeah, falling asleep in front of the telly is a big one, and you know, the other really big one is this connectedness to IT and exposure to the blue light of phones and iPads and laptops. And you know, there is some very strong evidence around the negative impact that can have on sleep. And you know, one of the things that is a very practical but simple little strategy that I suggest to people is, because it's about, the challenge is breaking that habit. We know what we need to do. But typically what happens is we get on those things at night, and you know, one thing leads to another on social media, or a bit of internet shopping, or you know, one article leads to another, leads to another, and then before you know it, it's 10:30 at night, and you're on your phone and your laptop and you're watching your TV all at once, and then it's like, oh my goodness, it's late, it's getting late, I've got to go to bed. So we know what we need to do, but so breaking those habits can be quite challenging. And what I suggest to people is, you know, set an alarm on your phone. So if you're aiming to go to bed at 10:30, set the alarm for 9:30, and then that's your trigger to turn everything off. And giving your brain a break. And you know, a lot of people again would say to me, but I always do this, and I'm sure it doesn't impact on my sleep. And it's like, well, we'll try it, you know, give me 5 days of trying it and then come back to me.
Yeah.
And it really can make a very big difference to, again, that quality of sleep that we get, because it's like shutting down all of the computer screens in your brain.
Yeah.
And when we shut them down properly, we don't tend to sleep as well, and we don't tend to get that good quality, deep, restorative sleep that we need for our good mental health and good mood.
And the worst is, like, say, you know, looking at your emails, you know, after 10 p.m. and that all of a sudden you're thinking about your next day already. And
Yes.
And then you don't sleep as well either, because subconsciously you're thinking about your next day and preparing yourself for that already. I know I've been guilty of that. And that it really, you know, plays a pivotal role on, you know, how you're going to be the next morning.
Yeah. And I think at the moment, you know, we're really going through this period of overconsumption of content and media and news, you know, about COVID-19, which obviously is important to keep up with, you know, in terms of the government regulations. But there can also be, it's like a point of overwhelm and that, you know, consuming that content all the time and not giving your brain a break can really, you know, be one of the things that contribute to your mood not being great and feeling overwhelmed and stressed, and then not sleeping well.
Yeah, that's some good advice, and you know, we can all take something away from that.
Yeah, and I just really encourage people just to, you know, just perhaps even just try one of those things to start with. You know, maybe it's the IT at night, or maybe it's cutting down in the coffee. Like, just try for a week, just one of those tips, and just see what impact that has on how you're feeling. And you know, we all know that great feeling. Like, sometimes you literally just sleep for 7 hours, but you wake up in the morning and you've just got spring in your step. Like, you know that you've had a really good, deep, restorative sleep.
Yeah.
And that's ideally what we should be getting every night.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, I think that's been some great advice on sleep patterns, and I think everyone will, you know, take something away from that. And if everyone can put something into practice, I tell you what, you'll feel a lot better. Thanks for joining us, Sharon, this morning. We'll be back for your shout on our next segment with you, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sharon. So we're back for another day of Your Shout, where you can send us your questions from home and one of our professionals can answer them on the show. You can send them to info@hospoforlife.com.au or send us a direct message through social media. Our first question today comes from a bartender in New South Wales. I usually have a positive outlook on life, but I'm finding that the longer we are practicing social distancing, the more negative I am thinking, feeling and reacting to things. What can I do to stop being so negative towards everything?
Look, I think it's a question that's probably echoed by a lot of people at the moment, Liam. You know, we've been social distancing for a while now, and it's having its impact on people. So, look, I think there's a few key things that I could suggest. And the first one is obviously for this person who is, you know, missing the social connectedness because of social distancing, is to really make sure that, you know, within their everyday that they actually are connecting to someone, at least one or probably two people in the day. And it can become a bit of a challenge, because when you're not feeling great in yourself or not feeling great about yourself, you're often less likely to want to reach out to people. However, that's often the most important time to actually reach out and connect with people. And we know that connectedness with people is one of the absolute, you know, core pillars really to good mental health and well-being. So, you know, I would, you know, recommend for this person to ensure that they, and you know, maybe it's letting someone know that they are having trouble. So even booking in a time, you know, it sort of sounds corny, but it's a simple thing where you might text a friend and say, you know, hey, can I give you a call at 4 o'clock? And, I actually did this with a friend on the weekend and said, how about we both go for a walk at 4 o'clock and we walk and talk. So, this friend was in another city, but it's someone that I, see regularly when I'm traveling as part of my job. And so it was great. We actually we both went for a walk and we talked at the same time. We had a really good connection. And I got off the phone feeling so much happier.
Yeah, I know how important that is at the moment to give someone a call each day and have that chat, just to keep the positivity there.
Yeah, and look, another thing that I would recommend is something called a gratitude journal, and actually writing down. And again,
we discussed that one a lot on the show last week.
It really can have a big impact on your mood. And so it's identifying perhaps 3 things that you're grateful for at the end of every day. And it's one of those things that it sounds so simple. People think, oh, would that really make a difference? But just having that discipline at the end of every day, you have a little notebook beside your bed and just writing down 3 things. And some days it might actually be hard to find those 3 things. And it might be as simple as, the chicken that I had for dinner tasted delicious, or I saw some blue sky today. I mean, some days it might be actually, that simple, but those spending some time, as you talked about last week, like thinking about things that we're grateful for can really help shift your mood and your mindset. And if you give it some time, they're definitely that is something that can really make really help.
Big difference. Well, that's the only question we had sent through to us at your shout today. I'd like to thank you for joining us on the show today, and that's been absolutely great as always. And if anyone at home has questions they would like answered on the show, please reach out to us at info@hospoforlife.com.au. Thanks, Sharon. Enjoy your day.
See you again. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Up for last drinks today, we have special guest Joshua Mason, chef and restaurateur of Quoi Dining and Boucherie here in Sydney. Josh, welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, mate. How you going?
Yeah, good, thanks. I've wanted to get you on the show. I've been really impressed with the way that you've had to adapt with your restaurants with COVID. Everyone's doing what they can at the moment. Tell me some of your highlights of opening a restaurant and, then opening a second one, and a little about your team and what happens in your restaurant.
Yeah, well, currently running both restaurants at the moment. I came back from San Francisco in 2017 with the desire to do something on my own after spending, 16 to 18 hours in a Michelin star kitchen. It was pretty tough. But I thought to myself one day while I was having my staff meal out with another 15 chefs in a courtyard, the potential of opening my own and putting all this time into my own place. And I was searching online at that time, and I found a restaurant that was for sale. So I pretty much left immediately that night in San Francisco, and came back, and the next day pretty much put a deposit on that business over in Norwest in the Hills region of Sydney. So it was really like go. I've had a really crazy 2.5, 3 years now at Quoi, and it's last year I stumbled across another venue in the Hills which had a really sort of dominant sort of location in the Hills, and when I looked at it straight away, I had another vision that that would be something a bit more simple and a bit more casual, and something good for the Hills, and I decided to execute that as well. And it took about 8 to 9 months to try and get that sorted with leases and loans and all that stuff. But we managed to get it over the line, and that's been operating for about 5 to 6 months now. And obviously it's now coming to a bit of cloudy water, as I say. But we're pushing through, and we're coming up with some good ideas, and to try and keep business going. So
yeah. No, you've done a great job with that. I've been following it for the last couple of years now, and it looks as though it's been going fantastic. And tell us about your team. What are some of the highlights that you've had with your team over the past couple of years?
Well, as you know, hospitality has a crazy fallout rate with turnover of staff. And, we all know that it's very hard to maintain a good team because, on one week you've got the best team in the world that you think you have, and the next week half of them are leaving to go to do studies or going back overseas. So it is really tough. But at the moment I have a very humble team across both venues. I've got some very, very talented chefs over in the new restaurant, the Boucherie, who are heading it up, who are running it. I spend not that much time in the kitchen over there because I trust these guys. They're very good. If the people go onto the website and they see the chefs there, I'm sure they know who they are. They've been, working with Neil Perry for the last 3-4 years. So they're awesome guys and they're locals. Le Boucherie has a very humble team, and I spend a lot of my time over at Quoi. With a team that a lot of them have been around for almost the start of the business, so to have a few of those guys, continue to stay on for almost 3 years, it's a tribute on both ends of the spectrum. Number one, they're in a workplace that they're comfortable with. They're in a workplace that makes them happy. They're in a workplace where they can express what they want. And number two, as a business owner, I'm doing everything that I can to ensure that all those points, that are comfortable for them, that they can come to work and feel like, they can do their trade, and that's the main thing, and that's what we want to do. We want to go in the kitchen and cook. We don't necessarily want to do too much else because that's our passion. That's what we love. So, mate, for those guys to be around for 3 years almost at Quoi, I've got a couple younger guys, a couple Le Cordon Bleu guys coming through, which I really enjoy mentoring and teaching. Yeah. I've got a 15-year-old in my kitchen at the moment who's been with me for I can't even remember, but he's been with me for probably over a year now. So he came to me, before he was even 14, and he came knocking on the door saying that he loves cooking and he wants to be a chef. And I said, well, mate, first step, go buy a chef jacket. Second step, see you tomorrow. So, he's awesome. And mate, to see a 15-year-old in the past with me on a busy night plating up food, it's a tribute to both sides of the spectrum again. So
it's good to give opportunities to young ones as well. Like I know when I started DWL Hospitality 6 years ago, and I was a consultant for a restaurant on the North Shore, well, really changing it up and fixing it up for the owner. And I was doing my prep one afternoon, and I had this knock on the side door, and I was like, "Who's that?" Thinking the supplier is coming through, and had a young lad. He literally just turned 15, same thing, and standing at the door going, "Oh, I heard this is a good place to work. Can I have a job?" And I was like, "Oh wow!" I was like, "You want to be a chef?" He's like, "I love cooking," and it started from there. I was like, "Right," it's like, Friday night, do you want to start? I said, "You can start tomorrow night," and that got him in. I was like, "You can work on the line with me for the night and just see what I do and how I do everything. And if you like it, you can come back." And so it's good to have them when they're young, and I mean, it's you can really shape them as well, and how things are done.
Well, it's good that a young person has direction, because I believe we live in a world of so much confusion and so many options that we get clouded by what's really important to us and really what we want. Because in this day and age, we grow up in a family where there's 20 different sports available at the school. So we're not focusing just on tennis or just on rugby or on soccer, where we've got everything in front of us. So we become very clouded by so many options. Options are good, but then how many options do you go and pursue before you waste time and you waste energy and you waste a resource? So it's good to see a young kid who he looked me in the eyes and goes, I want to be a chef, and I want to be a bloody good one. And I went, no problem, we'll come on in. So a year later, you got a 15-year-old plating on the pass with me.
It's brilliant.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. How did it feel when you had to eventually tell your team that things are changing and that there's nothing we can do about it? And how did you cope mentally with that?
Well, mate, the hardest thing was when something like this comes up, automatically you think about the journey of where you've got, like from then to now, and you think about, mate, how many Wagyu steaks you sold, how many bottles of wine, how many functions you've won over the line, how many catering functions you've done, how many successes you've had over the years, and how many nice bottles you've cracked open and gone, oh, well done, guys. And, and you kind of look back on that and you go, I've worked my ass off for 3 years with my team, my business partner, to build a life, not only for us, but to build a life for my employees, and to have 2 spaces now where people can feel accepted and feel comfortable and get, as a customer, get a good product. And for all that to come crashing down at that point in like 3 weeks, it was like a swap for 3 years for 3 weeks. And it was hard to sort of swallow at the start. But at the end of the day, I have a lot of humble, mature people who work for me, and there was not a lot of emotion behind it. It was more as a practical approach that, we can't do anything about it. It is what it is. It's now the law, and it's highly dangerous what's going on. So at the end of the day, we have to abide by it, and we need to be a part of the cure. We need to be a part of getting over it, not be a part of the problem. So at the end of the day, we decided to move our whole operation to the new restaurant. It's out on the main road, and it's plenty of parking. It's very accessible. And we closed down Quoi for now. But, it's been, I think, 5 weeks or something since it's all happened. And it's taken me 5 weeks to sort of get the gist of it. And this Friday, I'll relaunch Quoi again, and we'll do something a little bit different, and and see how we go. And hopefully that will re-stimulate my staff. So when when everything goes back to normal again, that they're sort of ready to jump back in again. So everyone seems to be okay. We've had a few staff come to the restaurant and just sort of hang out, and just come in and say hello, and and that's so nice too. I had another one of my staff come in 2 days ago, but it was just so nice to see one of my staff members from my other restaurant come in, caught a bus, come in, say hello, and she wanted to come in and buy stuff. And I said to her, "Don't be silly. Like, just take what you want. You're one of us. Like, just it was a quite an emotional thing, but it was so nice to see my staff who still come by and support us and say hello and stuff like that."
Yeah, that's amazing. So, tell us some of the things that you've done and that with the restaurants since it's happened.
Well, so at the Boucherie, seems that we've sort of migrated both restaurants together. What we've done is basically just kept a simple approach to it, and things that your roast dinners and your charcoal chickens, and more of our spin on it. But we're providing family meals, but at high quality stuff. People can come in, and there's still a lot of people out there who don't know how to cook a good steak. That's okay. I'm happy to teach you eventually. But at the moment, we're cooking them for you. We're putting them in a take-home container with red wine jus and whatever, and you're going home and enjoying a perfectly good steak that's Australian, and it's from down in the Phillip Island region, and it tastes amazing. So the good thing about this whole situation, in this terrible situation, there is some good points out of it. And the good point is that something like this brings a desperate need for your imagination to come out, and things to and different opportunities to start thinking of. So these opportunities now that you're thinking of and you're desperately trying to put out to try and gain business, some of these opportunities you might keep on for life. And these desperate times brings out innovation, and and we've innovated every week, every day. We've done so much to try and keep our regular customers happy, and they keep coming back every week. And it's really, really cool to see all of our customers come in and and come and buy racks of ribs, or a roast lamb, or a roast chicken, or a nice steak. So all I can say to all those people out there is keep innovating, keep coming up with new exciting things, and don't in a time where people would say that we're not doing much, or we're resting, don't switch off the brain. Like, keep it going, keep thinking, keep drawing things down. Like, I haven't stopped putting ideas down on paper, and different menu ideas, and and thinking about when things go back to normal, how can I restructure things nicely to have a nice even approach for when restaurants sort of kick back off again. So it's not a shock to the system, because I've got to think about that too. You know, when you go into a kitchen in a busy night, it's like if you don't have match fitness, you don't have match fitness. Like it's pretty tough. So I'm thinking in a way how, you know, how my staff can easily sort of, you know, get back into work without big shock to the system. So there's a lot to consider, but I tell everyone to, you know, keep innovating, you know, keep your brain on, you know, keep thinking about things that you can do to keep you stimulated. And you'll come out of this a better person, and you'll come out of this a more knowledgeable person, and possibly a better business maybe. So
I think a lot of us will.
Definitely, yeah. I strongly believe in that. And, you know, the people who are thinking outside the box are the guys who are winning at the moment, and who are the guys who have the most staff on and supporting their crew. So, yeah, definitely.
No, well, thanks for coming on the show today. It's you got a great story, and I hope to get you on again at a later time as well, and at some point. But yeah, no, thanks for joining us, Josh, and good luck to you for the next coming months and the rest of the year.
Mate, no dramas. It's always a pleasure, and thanks for the chat. And I hope we catch up soon, mate. So thank you, and it's a good initiative what you're doing, and I hope people can really benefit from it. So thanks, mate.
No, my pleasure, Josh. Cheers for coming on.
Cheers, mate. See ya.
Thanks, see ya. Well, that was another great show today. You can catch us back here at 5 p.m. tomorrow for another mental health topic. And special guest for Last Drinks, we have Tim Collette, the Managing Director of Specialised Events in Victoria. Big thanks to our partners at Warner's Gin and Altius Group for supporting the show. Stay strong and stay united in spirit to create a positive change for a healthier industry. I'm Chef Liam Crawley. Have a great night.